Welcome to another exciting episode of Culture Conversations. My name is Chizoba Mofebo. I remain your host. Today we are going to have an amazing conversation with an amazing human being, the first woman to do a road travel from London to Lagos successfully, Miss Pelumi Nubi. She's going to be joining us virtually, and we're just going to be picking her brain on the daring Nigerian mind. What kind of mindset did she have to be able to make that kind of journey? And she chronicled it, so we saw the difficulty of it. And at some point, I was like, if it was me, I would have just turned back or become a native of this community that I'm having that problem in. But she moved on, she dared, and she finally got to Lagos in good health. And there was a warm welcome, and she's still being warmly received all over the world. But today we have the onerous privilege of having an interview with Pelumi Nubi. She is a purpose-driven travel content creator and connector who thrives on exploring less commonly visited countries. She's currently living in Dubai, and she's the first woman to solo drive from London to Lagos, calling both the UK and Nigeria home while having ventured to 80 countries across 6 continents. Her engaging content inspires her community to embrace life with fearlessness and embody true freedom. She is committed to showing that travel can be safe, easy, and achievable, particularly for Black women who want to travel solo. She will be my first guest, and she's joining virtually because she is in London. So let's meet Pelumi Nubi.
Wow,
Hi, Pelumi.
what a warm welcome. Thank you for having me. I'm like, is that me?
Wow. I'm sure this is a very summarized version of everything that you have done and achieved. Thank you so much for doing what you did, because you changed a lot for women, especially. It might not even be just the woman who wants to travel. It might be the woman who is going through something, a journey of hers that might not need to be on the road, right? But it's a journey she's on, and she's been thinking, this is too formidable for me. But watching you as you chronicled, there were a lot of mindsets changed and a lot of new mindsets planted. Thank you so much for what you did, Pelumi. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
The Nigerian mind is a fantastic mind. I mean, we're touted all over the world as just being superhuman, and I agree. Do you understand? So for you, how did you get there? What was, when you thought about it, because you're well-traveled, so obviously you knew the stops you were going to make. You knew it was going to be such a difficult journey. You knew it was going on your own. You had sort of an idea of some things you would meet. At what point, what day, what was the thought process that led you to the day that you said, I'm doing this?
I believe reputation is such a big thing. Seeing someone else do something similar to you has always been a great, and that's why I wanted to do this adventure, because I found within the overland community, there was not enough representation. So that's the first thing first. And even more importantly, what you just said about, I use travel as the, model. But what I want people to look at and say, if I thought, London to Lagos, solo drive is impossible, and now I've seen Pelumi do it, I can then go on to do other things I consider impossible. So the date or the month in which I knew that this journey was going to start was in September 2002. So it took a year plus of planning. And I always believe and advocate for planning too as well, to make yourself as ready as you can. But it's until you set that goal, which I was like, on the 24th of January, it is my niece's birthday. I'm going to, pick up the engine. I bought the ferry ticket I was going to use to cross from the UK to France, and it was going to happen whether I liked it or not. So yeah, there was definitely a set deadline that had to come into place.
Okay. So I'm sure on the journey you got to know a lot about yourself that you did not know. You found out a lot about yourself that you did not. Can you just give us 3 things that you found out about yourself that shocked you or pleased you?
Pleased me was definitely the strength I had. I knew I was a strong, audacious person, but like you said, there were circumstances during the road trip that if I said deuces and I packed my bag, nobody would be upset with me. Post-accident, for example, when it happened in Ivory Coast, if I just said, I'm looking after my health, no one would have questioned me ending the trip at that point. But there was this depth that I didn't realize I had, or this strength They say when you hit rock bottom and you're able to crawl out of that, that's when you really appreciate your strength. So that's definitely something. Number two is how self-motivated and self-resilient I am in terms of just hearing naysayers, who sent you, who is for, not just people that have opinions and they will not do such an adventure by themselves. Then that was definitely something I learned. I learned I'm crazy, and crazy is such a good thing. I tell people, look, if nobody has called you crazy this year, you're playing it too safe. Like, you're really playing it too safe in life. It means that you're not being audacious. I say, if someone call me crazy, it means I am doing something that they cannot even comprehend. Do you know how powerful that is?
Yes.
So that is something that I definitely just, got to know more about. Community, the importance of community. I was able to build my online community from 12,000 followers to more than 300,000 on just one platform. We then went to TikTok, on YouTube, Facebook. So just storytelling and connecting with people, really getting them into the journey like they're participating in it. And many, many, many more lessons I learned for us on the road. But those are a few things that definitely stood out.
Yes, I mean, certainly we saw, you said something about if you're not being called crazy, you've not even started living yet, really. If you've not been called crazy, you haven't. And we're looking at you, and I was like, hey, God, just keeps your daughter safe. She has to make you home. She has to make you home. She has to make you home. Because
lots of prayer.
Lot of prayer. Lot of prayers went with you. And I think that's really the beauty of the Nigerian community, because see how we also showed up for Tunde as well for his, his fit as well. So you stopped at a couple of countries. I'm sure you saw the worst and you saw the best of Africa in a different light. I mean, you've been to African countries before this, but what was the difference between the Africa you saw on those trips you were on, and the Africa you saw on this particular trip?
I think with this one, there was a lot more immersion in it. It wasn't just a drive. It was a drive where maybe within 2 to 3 weeks. I was able to spend more time. It took 2 months and almost 2 months and a half, the whole journey. So there was definitely enough time to spend in these almost 13 African countries. And it was just amazing. Getting to learn the culture, getting to immerse myself in it, getting to, like you said, it had two sides of the coin. There was this beauty that Africa as a continent, had. For example, in Yamoussoukro, seeing one of the largest church, seeing the largest church in the world, pardon me. And people don't talk about it or speak about it so much in Ivory Coast. And then you also see the other side of, like, for example, the border issue that I faced. And I kept highlighting it as being a thing. I traveled through Europe and it was almost like borderless. But once I got to Africa, or West Africa specifically, it was just back to back in terms of, it's so different from when I was flying from one place to the other. Land border is not for the weak. There was so many challenges and reformation that needs to happen in our borders for just easier flow of tourism and trade as well. It's not conducive right now. So, it was so many experiences in terms of people realizing that we are more similar than different, and seeing overlap of culture, food, music, all of that good stuff. But also seeing, the not so good side of things, which I detailed as much as I could on my social media platform.
Yeah. So I didn't know about the church, but I didn't know about that church. And that's,
most people don't. People don't. And that's why it's so important that we tell our story as Africans in terms of, we can't be upset that the narrative out there is not positive. We are not actually adding to those narratives or changing them in a more positive light.
Yeah. So, with your experience, it will not be far-fetched, and it is obviously well-deserved if you're made Minister of Tourism, Culture, or something, right? And I pray that comes to be, if that's something you would gladly take on. But now we're talking about border issues, right? We're talking about border issues. So if you were put in that position, what are 2-3 things you would do to, what you will implement, policies you would implement to take care of that?
So the first thing I would definitely do, and I would love to be such in a power position, because I already kind of do just showcase Africa, or even anywhere I go to. But in terms of the border, the main issue is, number one, there's no level of accountability. Who are these people accountable? Who can I report you to? Once you feel like you have no one in control of you, you step out of line. You know that no one can hold you accountable. Use the power of social media, because some of these officers straightened up once they saw a camera. I'm like, so you're scared ahead of the camera. You know what you're doing is wrong. So really speaking to, for example, content creators that use these tools frequently and everyday travelers. So something I didn't do, for example, was I did not want special treatment. So I didn't reach out to my embassies, for example, because this is the issue. The people that are in charge of policies already have this entitlement. They go with their official vehicle, they get cleared without facing any issue. So for them, the borders are fine when they're not. So really seeing the everyday man's kind of like, experience, hearing from them, and really making sure that we put things in place, which is that, if you have your full documentation or anything like that, someone is asking for a bribe, there's a number you can call and make a report straight away. Really tangible thing there that is present. And knowing that, if it does, rotating the officers, again, having these people there for long duration of time just makes them stale, and they just feel like, again, they have nobody they're accountable to. So rotating them frequently, they don't settle up or have bases there, and they're able to have new eyes. And please don't get me wrong, they were not all bad people. They were just bad apples, which I feel will be picked out easily if there's more of this check within the borders.
Yes. Oh, nice. So we see that you're prepared for that position. Heaven.
Oh, yes.
Heaven, we are calling for the position. We're calling for the position. So you've met a lot of women, old, young, who are enamored by what you did, rightfully so. What are some of the questions? What are some of the questions that you've had thrown at you by these women, coming from what you've done? Like, I mean, they might have had issues that they are letting you know about. But what are some of the prevalent things they've talked to you about ever since this feat that you have achieved? The women, especially.
The one that just popped to my sheet is how. It's almost like there's this, again, this is why representation matters. This is why representation really, really does matter, because it's as if they never even fathomed that they could do such a thing.
Yes.
That, they could step out of these in conventional roles that the society puts us in on a constant basis.
Yes.
They constantly feel like, there's this, motherhood, marriage, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And once you step out of that, it's almost a taboo.
Yeah.
So when they see someone that is not necessarily doing the conventional, the question really is, how do I live an unconventional life? How do I chase my goal without feeling like a failure or failing the society as a whole? How do you do it? Affordability, finances, which has been a big thing. How do you really pursue your goal when you sound like a crazy person to everybody that you love around you? So these are the constant questions, and for the younger generation. So I love that you really highlighted it. This journey went from, 8-10 years old asking their mom, where's Pelumi Nubi right now? And I love the fact they use my full name. It's like, where's Pelumi Nubi? So you know exactly that they're following this story and they're inspired to go on their own adventure. And you get 65 years old women in my DMs, one left a comment the other day, like, I want to restart my life because of this journey you've gone on. Like, I want to do something incredible or remarkable like you have. And I'm just like, just go for it. Just do it, because life is short.
Yeah.
And honestly, at the end of my life, I just want to have less could have, should have, would have, less regret, and know that I lived it as fully as I could.
As you could. Pardon me, you're inspiring me here too. So, so I mean, final question.
That's such a warm comment. Thank you.
You're welcome. So, but like final comments, so I can leave you to do, your other business. Pan-Africanism is a big talk on the scene now, rightfully so. It's time for us to congregate, and the question, I mean, when talks are going on about Pan-Africanism, it's always almost like, we leave the West out of it. We're like, we don't want the West part of it. The West has done enough damage. But you come from two of this. You come from both cultures, being that you're in London right now, you grew up there. So is there, what would you say, and you travel the world, what would you say the right way to go about Pan-Africanism is?
Is there a right way?
Well, I mean, well,
that's more of it. Is there a right way? But I think, for example, people that do feel like it should be handled by our people, I think there's definitely lots of improvement that needs to be done, and it takes one step at a time. I feel like change has happened over the years, but more is to come. If you were taking something as small as ECOWAS, it's not functional. We need to just break it down and make it a lot more functional. Actually asking the right people, holding the right people accountable, but more importantly, coming together. The fact that we are so separated is crazy. Like, why am I finding it? Why is a white man able to move through my continent easier than I am. It's just crazy, you know. So there's definitely need for change in terms of how we perceive each other within the African continent and the freedom that we are allowed to, you know, how do we see each other? Is it this constant hate? Or is there actually unity that will ever be formed? So those are the conversation. And yes, I don't think the West needs to per se be involved in it. But it's definitely needs to again move past conversation to actionable step. What exactly are we putting in place to make sure that we improve and not just keep talking and talking and talking?
Thank you so much, Pelumi. Thank you so much. Thank you for existing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for going ahead and doing. You know, and just what you said, we have to have this commitment to live a life with little or no should haves, could haves, you know, whatever. And that's what I'm taking home today. So I'm going home and I'm going to go and write a list of things I would love to do, considering that I am not leaving this earth very soon. So I have many years, you know.
I'm into that.
Thank you so much, Pelumi. Thank you so much. Have a blessed day going forward. We had Pelumi in the studio with us. We are so grateful that she took out the time to be here. And we learned a lot from her. For the young person, for the old person, there were a lot of lessons to learn today. And we are praying, fingers crossed, that she's made minister in some way of culture, tourism, because she's one person that has the right. She has a resume. So let's pray together to make that happen, just as we pray together to make her trip from London to Lagos very safe. Okay. We'll be joining John and Helen in the studio. I remain Chizoba Mofebu. This is Culture Conversations. Stay tuned.